You know, these are nice moments. When someone like me, he of little faith over here, is proven wrong in the best of ways. When my expectations are actually shattered, and I'm left instead with this.
This one's dangerous. But whatever happens, we'll be ready.
And today we have Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. So I gotta admit, wasn't excited about this one. I don't know what it was, but like, I love the cast and everything, and the trailers. Like, I don't know. I think I made assumptions. I made some very bold assumptions. Dungeons and Dragons used to be something that was like looked upon in a very negative light way back in the day, before I was even born. Looked upon in a very bad light, and now in recent years, thanks to I think like a mixture of younger generations growing older, appreciation by older generations, gentrification, and I think mostly pop culture and media, shows like Stranger Things have kind of popularized it. You know, the type of stuff where you're like, Hot Topic no longer is like strictly goth stuff, but also nerd and geek culture, or more nerd and geek culture now. But my assumption was that this film was capitalizing on the upswing of it, because you have all these great, brilliant shows and podcasts, stuff that too much for me to watch, but I see the clips, stuff like D20 or Critical Role. I love Brendan Lee Mulligan. I mean, all these different types of stuff. It's like all the popularization of D&D, and I figure, oh, it's a studio and some like, you know, Hollywood whatever's trying to capitalize on that and make like a, you know, a schlocky like, oh, we're gonna do D&D, we're gonna CGI swashbuckling adventure. And oh, how wrong I was. Get this out of the way real quick. Dungeons and Dragons is directed. It's a like a co-directorial venture. I believe it's a John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein. They're a duo who I think they've acted, at least Daley acted, I think more than he's directed, but they're a duo and very small filmography, but they've done mostly like comedies or action comedy stuff. Like they did that Vacation movie that was supposed to be like a not really but still kind of remake of the old like Vacation, National Lampoon films and all that. Plus they did one that I still haven't watched, but everybody said was surprisingly good, Game Night. They directed that as well. So it's technically not their first foray into mainstream media and film, but I feel like it's their first big blockbuster. But yeah, two guys getting together, directing this. They've got experience, acting, writing, directing, probably producing. The cast is a regular who's who of big actors, all of which I really thoroughly enjoy. But the one I had to say, I wanted to point her out because I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because she's like just cute face, her eyes, redhead, I don't know. I don't see her in as much film as I would like to. She just pops up like once every year, once every couple of years. But Sophia Lillis, add her to the list of like Hollywood crushes that I have. Mainly popularized when she was Beverly Marsh in It. The remake of It with, you know, Skarsgård and other people. But I don't see a lot of her. Not like, you know, to the level of like Anya Taylor-Joy or Jenna Ortega or something. But she was in this, and I don't know. I saw it and I was just like, like. But I mean, everybody else, you know, Chris Pine and so on. I mean, they're all great. Like, they're all lovable. Michelle Rodriguez, suffice to say, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, which, by the way, Uncharted did it first, so, you know, I know the expression has been around for much longer. Technically, Sly Cooper did it first. But anyway, Honor Among Thieves, yeah, it always works, but everybody's just saying Dungeons and Dragons, the movie or whatever. Not the 2000 movie, one from 2000. I don't know how good or bad that one was, but as the trailers were hitting, I was like, okay, I guess I'll go see it. And then a couple of my friends were like, oh my god, that was great. That was so fun, so well done. I was surprised. I said, really? That was really good? I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go see it anyway. You know, IMAX no less. Let's give it a go. This was actually really fun, funny, and entertaining. All the actors were great. Their characters were great. What was really cool about this is that, look, I'm very familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, like D&D. I say that as like I know how the worlds work. I'm not fluent in the lore. I've not played nearly as many sessions as I would have liked to. I'm more of a Goosebumps choose your own adventure, or like little small fun little campaigns that I would play as like kid games and whatnot back in the day. But I get it. I understand the concepts. And I know how campaigns work and all that. And watching this movie, they never were like overbearing about like we're playing D&D. Like none of that. It was just kind of that was the world. You were in the world of D&D. There were spells and character classes, you know. But what I'm trying to say overall is that it felt like I was watching an actual D&D campaign unfold. It wasn't, you know, perfect, but it felt like, you know, it was characters that, you know, sometimes, as I learned, wild magic spells were thrown out in perilous moments. They somehow worked, they pulled off a feat, or if the players encountered a problem or a wall, they found a way around it. Roll for perception. What about potatoes next to me? Throw a potato, or just something like that. But it felt like, you know, it was all implicit. It wasn't like, oh, nobody was rolling, nobody was shouting out this or that. It was just happening. It was going. But because you have the insight of it being a movie, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, the movie, then you know, oh, that's what they're doing. So I like that a lot. And from what I learned, because I had a couple friends that were with me that were they're much more into D&D than I was. They're like nerds when it comes to the lore, locations, characters, spells, creatures. So after we saw the movie and got out, they were telling me about how, you know, for the most part, it was overall very accurate to D&D canon and how that all worked, which I think is super cool, and which I really appreciated as well, because that shows you, you know, easily you could have had these, like, you know, people in Hollywood or what have you that are like, oh, we're gonna take this existing IP or franchise and then just do whatever we want with it. But no, to see that there was actually respect and adherence for the most part to this, it was very much like Last of Us, you know, for me at least. The show as an adaptation of the game was overall like pretty on par, with some mild deviations here that made it more conducive for a television narrative format, similar to what this did apparently. Like they, you know, there are some, like, was it 100% painfully accurate to the every nth of degree and rule? Maybe not, but any changes that were made were very conducive to the film, and they worked in the film's favor rather than against it. As I said already, the actors are all great. They all play their roles really well. You know, we get a little bit of charming, we get funny, we get some super serious, we get, you know, rough and tough or whatever. All of them are great. You know, Chris Pine is funny in what he does. I've already mentioned my love of Sophia Lillis. If I haven't already, I don't know if I mentioned Michelle Rodriguez, but the film also had beautiful environments, like in terms of it, very Death Stranding vibes, very Lord of the Rings-esque, like you're walking through these beautiful, there's mountains, there's fields of grain, there's some, I don't know how much of it was real or digital, but you know, one would have like an active volcano, they'd be going through a town square or something. All of it, even the caves or wherever they ventured, graveyards, the production design on this was great, fantastic. The atmosphere, I felt like I was in this medieval D&D world. I was part of this campaign. I was along for the ride. It all looked great. It looked lived in and magical and like this enchanted, naturally occurring world. It was great. Atmosphere, set design, production value, costumes, you know, characters, whatever, like it was all good. Even for being a PG-13 action movie, which I always, the violence and choreography and fighting can always be hit or miss with me, but these fights overall, like, you know, granted I don't know what these spells are that are being hurled and tossed around, but the magic looked good, the sprites were fun, the mixture of, again, digital creatures and physical stuff, like it was all, they were well choreographed, fun fights to watch. They didn't feel like stale or cheap. Granted, they weren't really, there were some minor moments of peril, but I mean, nothing too crazy, like, oh my god, but it was, you know, there were some fun fights. It served the movie really well, and I think the sound design and the characters and the choreography really added to that. Not to mention, from like a production and cinematography, directing standpoint, there was probably my favorite shot in the film. There was this really cool, funny enough, deals with Sophia Lillis, because her character like can morph into different animals and whatnot. There's a really cool like one take shot through a castle, out of a castle, back into town. I loved that scene. I'm a fan of a good old one take, and this one was like a really cool, like actiony, intense one take, and I liked it. It was really good. It was creative. It was fun. Cons that I had, granted, this wasn't like a perfect film. There was emotional connection there. I don't think it was super strong. It could have been stronger. But, you know, I got a little bit misty-eyed here and there, and I felt for characters, and like they did a good job humanizing everybody, and really each character got just enough development including our main characters, where I did care, and I was along for the ride, and I wanted them to succeed, naturally. But I still felt like the film lacked some, like, big emotional punches. I don't know, maybe people felt differently, but I thought there was emotion to be had there. I really cared and liked the characters, but it didn't pack the emotional punch that I would have loved from a film like this. I felt like everybody had plot armor to an extent. They definitely put our characters in peril, but I never felt like there was a sense of true peril. I never felt like people could actually drop at any point in time. I don't know if it's because the film just such a more lighthearted approach, but I never felt peril. And when there's lack of stakes or peril in your narrative, it's not that I stopped caring, I just can't get as invested, I can't care as much. And actually, one big complaint that I did have, there are villains, and I mean, you can argue that there's like a main villain or what have you. Like there's like some sub and some dom villains, for lack of a better term, but I felt like the villains never really got fully developed as much as our protagonists did. Does the film suffer for it? No, but what really grips me in a film like this is when your villain is compelling, and especially if you can sympathize for your villain. But I think, I mean, from what the trailer shows you in the poster and all that, your main villain, I mean, she did a good job of being just this annoying, evil, powerful witch. It's just like, literally there's like several scenes where she's like, and I'm just like, okay, that's kind of, I mean, not really creepy, it's more just annoying, so I guess good, I hate this gal, but I don't know. I like a compelling villain. I think the mark of a good villain is you either really hate them because they're diabolical and evil, like your Joffrey Baratheons, your Ramsay Boltons or whatever. I know I'm only quoting Game of Thrones, but just you either have vile, despicable villains, or you have ones that are even more compelling because you actually like sympathize or empathize, or maybe they're a villain due to circumstances or because they have their own tragic backstory. This film did lack that. I just felt like they pulled, some mystical villain stuff from D&D and was like, here's the Force. You're really only meant to care about your main characters, and that's it. But yeah, only a few complaints. Overall, I am very pleasantly surprised by not only how good Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves was, but how much I enjoyed it. I did not think I was going to super enjoy this film, and it might actually be one of my top films this year. Hard to say, we're still early on, we've only just hit spring, but it's up there. Has a lot going for it. It's not perfect, but it's definitely up there in terms of quality of film and my personal enjoyment. I would gladly give Dungeons & Dragons a very high 4 out of 5. I give it a high 4 out of 5. I'm surprised that I liked it as much as I did. I definitely would want to watch it again, if not just for the chubby dragon, you know what I mean, if you've seen it. That was hilarious, by the way. And I'd recommend it. Go see it in theaters. Hell, seeing it in IMAX was actually really great. It was a fun, super fun experience. But I recommend it. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, and I'm glad that it was. That's all I got to say about Dungeons & Dragons. Go watch it. They leave the door open to make more. From what I heard and understand, they could make this into a series, but similar to what Knives Out and Glass Onion have done, Dungeons & Dragons will be the title, card, headline, and you'll have new campaigns, a new cast of big actors and characters going on different adventures that are all unrelated, and you know what? That'd be cool. Or maybe there is like a small related plot line, I don't know, but I would be down for a series. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next movie that I review. And goodbye, everyone.